What's up, Washington? It's Eric Pratt, candidate for Legislative District 24, House of Representatives, Position 1, on my way to the Clallam County Republican meeting tonight. Hopefully see some people, get some input, some ideas, and I like to go to these meetings because it's nice to be around people that are engaged and sort of learn from them. And some of them have been doing this political thing a lot longer than me, so I got a lot to learn. Real quick, I wanted to, vent a little bit. The past couple days has been sort of interesting. You know, when you run a campaign or you're part of a campaign as a citizen, there's a lot of unknowns going into this, right? I won't say we're not welcome. It's just that you got to put in work before you can get there and get some understanding, I think. And there's sort of barriers to entry to get to that point. And that means going to the party and working as a PCO and doing all these other things. And sort of working your way up, just like a lot of other systems, human social systems. So anyway, but being a candidate sort of like me, where I come from trying to understand legislation and not necessarily the political side, it's a different avenue to get here, and it poses some difficulties. One of those difficulties is confusion of the process. You want everybody to be earnest and honest and upfront and communicate well. I think that's how you go into this. Like, okay, I'm gonna enter into this and I'm gonna try and put my best foot forward. I'm gonna be honest. I'm gonna communicate. I'm gonna do the right things, and the people around me are gonna do the same and respond in kind. It doesn't quite work that way. So I think that an expectation like that may be a little naive on my part. Recently, I'm actually in Washington State right now, but recently I was over on the East Coast, and there was a couple of events that I wanted to go to, that I was invited to, and that I was going to take part in. So I flew home for one of those events. One of the events was quite important. It was a pretty good sort of campaign and fundraising event where you could, maybe not fundraising specifically, but it was sort of a networking event where you could get and put in front of donors and leadership and shake hands with people. Very valuable when it comes to politics. I was invited in mid-March, almost the week after I'd filed, and RSVP'd and went through all the motions. And yesterday, as I'm just sort of following up on things, just trying to make some calls, and reached out and got in touch with them. And they said, oh, yes, we had to rescind your invitation to this thing. So basically was told I wasn't invited anymore to this function. They obviously didn't know that I was flying from the East Coast and that I'd made arrangements and whatnot. So you could only put so much stock in that. But still, there was sort of this lack of communication, which I was really disappointed in. It was only because I made the follow-up call that I found out that I wasn't invited anymore. The other thing was I've sort of had this how would I put this? This theme of people that I talk to, people in the know, that basically say, you're not going to get any mainstream money. So and I take that to mean like your typical donors aren't going to be donating, like your typical Republican donors. In other words, people that have sort of put people in line aren't going to be donating to your campaign like they would if it were a person who is sort of put into place. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's okay. It's just something I didn't quite understand. They got to meter how they spend money, and they've got to meter how the energy is put forth. And so it makes sense from the standpoint of spending that resources, whatever they are, wisely. So major state donors who donate to campaigns regularly are probably not. They're going to pass over people like me, what's called citizen volunteers, I've heard it called that. So anyway, it's kind of interesting. It is a little demoralizing, only in the sense that you kind of hope that if you're willing to stick your neck out there and put yourself at risk, which there's a lot of sort of understanding that you're putting yourself at risk. If you're doing that, you're hoping that sort of the team of people who are already doing the work will at least come in and nudge you along. But that's not quite how it works. So it's okay. I'm not trying to complain too much about it. It's just the nature of this process. So it's good. It's just something I didn't quite understand. And I don't think a lot of people understand. The way to offset that is to have grassroots people come in and do the work. The problem then you run into is it's almost like you can't mix those two things very well, right? We've seen examples from the past where that didn't quite work out for Washington State. It actually created a divide in the state, which I think was worse off. Egos get in the way, feelings get hurt because of that lack of understanding. I'm not trying to say that's where it needs to go. It's just you got to understand the space as it exists and incorporate your new work, like what I'm doing, to try and coexist in orbit around it. You can still have a good effect, I think. It's just you have to approach it from a different perspective and with different expectations. A small campaign like mine, initial campaign, sort of a opening campaign, is just not looked upon favorably by larger donors, larger politically motivated groups, and it's tough to get a foothold. So anyway, I'm gonna head on down the road and get to my Republican meeting and keep the work going. This isn't to say to be don't be discouraged. This is all part of the process, but it's important to learn and recognize it for what it is. So all right, hope you're well. We'll talk at you later. See you, Washington.